What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Blade Dive. I am your host, as always, Parker Bohan, and I am excited that you have brought us along for the ride, whatever you are driving or operating. Appreciate you. Real quick, the pro tips have been a hit. So if you want to tag us in your videos within your stories on Instagram, we will add those to the highlights. Obviously, if it makes sense, if it's beneficial to somebody else's process and you want to share it, that's what we're going to share. That's where I'll leave it. Now is a good time to thank our sponsor, Prinoth. They back this thing, and I'm grateful to have their support for the podcast. So huge shout out to Prinoth for sponsoring the Blade Dive. If you're not following us on social media, follow us on the Instagram at the Blade Dive. Send us a DM. Let us know what you got going on. Say hi, whatever you'd like to do. Would very much appreciate your support there as well. Okay, my guest today is Kurt Eppler, and if you do not know Kurt is a industry veteran, currently the director of mountain operations at Angel Fire Resort in New Mexico, and he has worked for SPT. He has worked and built the Olympic race courses in Salt Lake. He has traveled over to Japan and operated equipment, France. He's built USASA National courses. But we really get into talking about people and how valuable our people are within the industry. It's a really great conversation. I'm excited to share it, so we're just going to jump right in. So if you're at home, grab your favorite drink, kick your feet up, and if you're in the machine anywhere in the world, turn up the volume.
Go ahead and give it the juice. Already.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Blade Dive. I am truly humbled to be on this side of the virtual booth. My guest on the other side is coming from a different state. We're crossing the border, and it is Kurt Eppler, Director of Mountain Operations at Angel Fire, New Mexico. Kind of want to term him the OG or the G of snowcat operations, but highly intelligent, knows all, kind of the Gandalf of if maybe you're a Lord of the Rings fan of anything that relates to snowcats, you're going to want to tune in and stay in tune with what we talk about. But Kurt, I'm honored. Thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show. Welcome.
Well, thank you, Parker. Honored to be here. Very flattered.
You know the deal. We kick this thing off with a special guest question, and the special guest question is pretty special. So are you okay with that? You cool with that?
Yes, sir.
Let's do it. Okay, so today's special guest question comes from nobody other than Andreas Silberknuckle.
Hey, Kurt, my friend. How are you doing? Long time no see. I bet you do great over there. Do you still recognize this sound here? I bet you do. Playing around with some brand new cats up here on the glacier. Missing you. Oh, I've got 2 questions for you regarding your Alps trips. So what did you enjoy the most? The 48 switchbacks getting up the glacier at 7 a.m. in the morning straight after breakfast? Or was it more the view at all those spandex squeezed cyclists trying to get up the mountain here? And the second question is, how's about the safe spaces around you? Still same situation? So, it was good to talk to you. Hope to see you soon somewhere around the world. Cheers from Italy.
Wow. Andreas, honored to get a question from him. The guy is unbelievable. Had just a fantastic time working with him. We got to go to Italy to do R&D work up on the Stelvio Glacier. That's what he's referring to on the 48 switchbacks, and like 11 miles of road, there's 48 switchbacks. Some of them, just very, very narrow road, very interesting to ride on. You're sharing the road with buses, bicycles, motorcycles, Ferraris, everything. And you go up and we go up and we run snowcats in the middle of the summer on the glacier. What did I like most? It was definitely the view up there was unbelievable. But also just the atmosphere, the snowcat atmosphere, going up and winching on the glacier and doing the R&D work. It's very serious business up there, very high stakes. First time I've dealt with crevasses, and yeah, it was an amazing trip. Was fortunate enough to do the trip along with Ben Finn and Jason Rakow also when I worked with Prinoth, and it was an experience of a lifetime, without a doubt.
Well, the other thing that you mentioned too, and I have to say, first of all, I've never been to Italy, but if I did get the opportunity to go over there, I would probably be, as I've suggested before, a little bit like Ferdinand the Bull, where you're just super distracted by all the pretty things that you see. Camera, and nowadays we have cameras in our cell phones, so I would be constantly taking pictures of the mountain. I think the cool thing that he mentioned too was when he and I were catching up is that those switchbacks that he was talking about, that he mentioned that led the way up to the glacier. It's not like those switchbacks are casual, U-turns. They are legitimately 90 degrees. They're super sketchy switchbacks from memory. I don't know if that's what you what you remember.
Well, there are actually a good number of them where I guess I'd call them 170-degree switchbacks, because you're under one road, you make the switchback, and then you're right above the one you were just on. And of course, when Andreas was driving, it was cool because there is absolute eye candy everywhere. The views are beautiful. But then when I had to drive the road myself, there wasn't no sightseeing on my part. You had to stay focused on the road. It was really intense. To try to even describe it is too much of a challenge, I believe. But it was extreme. And going up to Stelvio and Andreas cussing those bicycle riders all the way up. It's absolute road rage.
So. Well, I kind of want to determine like the oh shit switchbacks, because you're they've got the oh shit bar if you're the passenger holding on or whatnot. But that's kind of where I would have been. I would have been holding on to the oh shit bar and then hanging out and taking the picture of the scenery if I had the passenger seat. But gosh, the other thing that he mentioned too was really cool, because I don't think that you've got obviously the switchbacks going up there and the scenery and what it is to enjoy it, but then the safe space. And he and I had the opportunity to kind of unpack what it is to be held accountable and what it looks like to be within that safe space. I would be curious to know whether you thought you had a safe space up there or not, kind of as he said it.
Well, the safest place up there was definitely in the cab of a snowcat. The best story I could tell about safe space was at the top of Stelvio Glacier. When you get up on the ground, at the top terminal of the highest lift, Andreas asked me to drive up there with the cat. I had one of the mechanics with me, and he told me to drive up to the top of the lift and go look over the edge. Well, I get up to the top of this lift and look over the edge, and it is a 4,000-foot near vertical drop down to the Bormio Valley below. And I hate heights, so I kind of got squeamish and everything. So did the mechanic. We kind of stepped back. It's a beautiful view and everything, but I asked Andreas later. I said, I got up there and there were no signs. It wasn't fenced off. There was nothing warning people about this 4,000-foot drop off. And his response was, well, over here, we just don't protect stupid people. So there was no safe space up there, no fence to protect you or anything. It just, but one of his references to safe space too is the perception over there is that sometimes over here in the States, we get our feelings hurt real easy.
Mm.
And we don't feel comfortable with our surroundings, and that maybe we're compelled to provide people with a safe space somewhere where they can not feel threatened. And it just turned into a long running joke with us. Don't know if many of the listeners would relate. Those that have been around Andreas would definitely understand what he's referring to. And yeah, and it's he never said it in a matter of putting us down or teasing us. It was just kind of a running joke we had between us, and then that turned into us always talking about how our ultimate safe space is in the cab of the Snowcat.
Yeah, and that's exactly how he pretty much termed it with me. He just said, "Look, when you work with me, I'm going to be completely transparent with how you're doing and where you're at, and how I can hold you accountable is that way. If you want feedback from me and you ask me my feedback, I'm going to give you my honest feedback. If you think that it's going to be candy coated, sugar coated, that's not the case." And he said that is just, in my opinion, the way that things need to be. And I personally, I gravitate towards straight shooters, and that's how I coined it with him. I said, yeah, I very much appreciated the just the mannerisms of people who can shoot me straight instead of bullshitting around the answer. If I have a question, tell me what's up. If I have a piece of feedback that I'm looking to get from you, tell me what that is. Don't delineate between the two and separate them, and then give me one or the other, or spoon feed me one more so than the other. Just give it to me straight. And I thought that was rad. I very much appreciated that phrase that he had of that no safe space, and what it was to operate around him and with him, especially if he was working on, competition venue, or if he was in an R&D situation or a demo situation. Yeah, I'd like to go spend some time with that guy. Just selfishly.
Everybody should be able to spend some time with him, but you got to be prepared. The thing is, he's going to tell you exactly how it is, but if don't feel threatened by it. That's not his intention.
Mm-mm.
You absorb it, you take that feedback, and you grow from it. And his intentions are nothing more than to help you become a better operator. He's a true pure teacher of the Snowcat. The guy speaks 5 languages. I always told him he speaks 5 languages, and I can't even speak one right. And he reminds me that he speaks 5 languages and none of them right. But yeah, I mean, his first lesson he gave me in safe space was first time I was on the glacier. Well, it was actually the second day I was on the glacier. Stopped the cat, hooked up, winch, had to take a leak real bad. Just not even thinking, hop right off of the track. And he leans out the window and says, "Hey, Kurt, if you got to take a leak, stay on the track. There might be a crevasse out there." And he said, "You need to get up on your safe space." And I told him, "Well, you could have told me that on day 1.
No, yeah, it's the truth. I mean, Beckinsale even mentioned that to me too. He's like, one of the first lessons I learned when I was in South Fe was stay on your tracks when you're taking the leak.
Yeah,
because you don't even know if there's something's going to open up underneath you if you're already off your tracks during your break there. But yeah, really, again, like really rad to catch up with Andreas and have him contribute to your episode again. I can't stress enough. Just he was stoked. He was like, "Kurt's going to be on the show." Heck yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm honored. That guy's something else, man. I've utmost respect for him. Honored to have worked with him.
He definitely is. Well, honored is definitely something that I'm going to be right now because I'm in your presence via the virtual booth. But I want to unpack more about you, what you're all about. And one of those things starts with just what it was like growing up as Kurt Eppler. However much you're willing to paint that picture for us and clue us in, would love for you to do that. Take it away.
Wow. Well, I grew up in shit. I was born in Del Rio, Texas. I guess to start the journey. Um, when I was just over a year old, my father and mother moved to New Mexico. My father worked construction and was finishing off the final stages of Interstate 25. And I grew up in a small town called Springer, New Mexico, which is out on the prairie, about 30 miles away from the mountains. Parents divorced. Mom remarried to a wonderful man that raised me and my brother, and my father, great guy, construction guy, always driven by that quest to see what was on the other side of the next hill. Went to Utah and got in big construction projects, and then went up to Alaska and was a superintendent on the Alaskan pipeline.
Wow.
And when he was 34 years old, he had over 500 people working under him. So he used to always say he had moved dirt on the banks of the Rio Grande River and the shores of Prudhoe Bay, Alaska, at many points in between. And that's where I think I got my desire to always see what was over the next hill. And before he passed away, got to tell him that I pushed snow everywhere from Joetsu Kokusai in Japan to Tignes, France, and many places in between. So I had something to brag about due to my desire to see what was over the next hill. But yeah, I grew up in Springer, New Mexico, out on a little farm, real small community that a lot of people drive by on the interstate and never even notice it's there. Grew up around some great people, strong Hispanic culture. Grew up in that town at a great time. In our generation, there was not much racism present. Everybody got along good. Made some great lifelong friends there. Was very, very blessed to grow up in a place like that. Had to be tough to grow up there. Had to be humble. You bragged about what you could do, you got your ass kicked. Got toughened up real quick. Played a lot of sports. I guess when I was about 9 years old is when I got introduced to skiing. Had some parents there that were skiers that started a ski club. The school let them use a school bus, and I joined the ski club. I was the only one in my family that had even the slightest interest in it, and came up to Angel Fire, where I work now, and skied for the first time when I was 9 years old. And just fell in love with it, and then married my high school sweetheart, and still married to her to this day, 35 years, going strong. And we've settled here in Angel Fire, and just kind of how it all started, just got into a ski club and got interested in it. And then as I got older and married and started working construction work, and one day somebody winter excavation work slows down with the ground freezing and everything, so somebody suggested to me that I go up to the ski area and run a snowcat. My first response was, what the hell's a snowcat? got the job, got in a 3700 LMC, and I got in with the guy, and he drove me up the run just on, it's called Exhibition, right on the front of the mountain. He drove the cat up to the top, showed me what the controls did, let me drive it down to the bottom, and handed me a trail map and said, go drive around all the blue and green ones from here to the top. So that was my my introduction into snowcatting. And yeah, that's I was 22 years old when I got in it.
Wow. I want to let's start here. Angel Fire. Not to jump like too far ahead, but one of the things that I mentioned when you and I were chatting offline was this new flick that's come out with TGR, Teton Gravity Research. That anybody wants to go check it out, but it's called The Pursuit of Soul. And they didn't call it The Pursuit of Stoke. They didn't call it the pursuit of awesomeness or whatever. The soul, the pursuit of soul and what it is to be kind of that local piece. I still feel like Angel Fire is that. But you mentioned too that your community in of itself is very one. It's very much united, or at least that's how you kind of portrayed it when you were unpacking it there. I think that's awesome. I'm humbled by those words. I really am. But I'd be curious to know if you feel like that that's kind of the vibe that you get when you roll up to the mountain every day. I mean, I know you got the amazing opportunity to lead that mountain operations crew up there, but when you land boots on the ground, do you still feel that way? Do you still feel the soul of what it is to be a part of that operations team, just as if you were starting out at 22, 23 years old?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's definitely the sense of pride, and a lot of it comes from just seeing so many of the changes that have happened up here and being a part of a lot of those changes. We got a detachable quad lift that when it was built, it was the longest one in North America. And when I ride it, I remember digging the holes for the towers. Remember digging out the hole for the bottom terminal. Ride the lift past trails. Remember, taking the first tree down on that trail when we cut it, and I, think back to when I was 9 years old, and remember when there wasn't even a lift that went to the backside of the mountain. You had to ride a bus back there, and just seeing all those changes and how a lot of those changes have happened as I've raised my children on that mountain, and now have my grandchildren growing up on it. It's really special. I mean, you can go all around the world, but there still ain't nothing like your home mountain. Yeah, maybe that sounds a little corny, but shit, it's true, man. Your home mountain, the first time you ever rode or skied, there's just always something special about being there, and I get to go there every day.
Very well said. I treasure the places that I grew up being around in North Carolina. Unfortunately, I've mentioned it before too. Like being from Tennessee, we would drive a long way, so the cost to get up there was not astronomical, but it was expensive, and so we used to hop the fence and ski down, and if we didn't get caught, that's how we were getting back up and doing laps until we could afford to buy passes. And there's, I think, something to be said for that. It's just something organic. There's an investment there, a little bit of a risk too. Whether you're pursuing it boots on the ground and you're employed or by the resort, or you're participating as a guest and you don't really know what you're getting into until you experience it for the first time. There's always that feeling of there's that soul there. There's that origination of why you wanted to be a part of something. And you mentioned it too with there's a commitment there when you have family and you're invested in what it is in front of you, and your family's been with you for that whole ride. I mean, the entire adventure, your kids, your wife, your grandchildren, and there's something to be said for that. And I think in this day and age, people still value that. Companies still value that. I feel like they do. I want to feel like they do. But I'd like to know too, like, do you feel like that you're the most proud of what you've done because your family's been there right beside you the entire time?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a great life. It's a great way for kids to grow up. I feel blessed that my children were able to grow up on this mountain, and then my grandchildren are now doing it. It's the best babysitter in the world. It's the perfect mountain to just drop the kids off and let them go, and they can find their way to the bottom. There's people out there that know them by name. I can't think of a better way to raise the kids than on a ski mountain. I think it just gives them a real full life.
I was gonna say, like, you take those, you've got opportunities or jobs that maybe you've got to travel, or maybe you've got to be away, and the money might be there, and you're super proud of what you've accomplished in your career. But to have your family do it beside you the whole time, I mean, that's something to be. They've endured just as much as you have worked, and so to be able to have all of them right there with you to say, "Hey, proud of Dad, proud of my husband, proud of Kurt," that's super rad. I think that's just something to hang your hat on. So I wanted to at least let the listeners know that's something to be said for anybody that pursues a career in this industry for as long as Kurt has.
I think it's pretty common to find across the industry where the ski industry becomes a family tradition. I've met many people where they're third generation snowcat operators, third generation ski instructors. We got a wonderful ski school director where I work here in Angel Fire, has been here for a lot of years. His daughter's taken over management of the children's ski school. It just my both of my boys got into snowcatting. It's just becomes part of it's the family business, as my boys say. So
Totally. Well, I'm going to hit you with another special guest question. It's from Mr. Mike Bunnell. Throw a little bit of a curveball at you here out of sequence, but I'll play it for you now. Here we go.
Kurt Eppler, I got a couple questions for you. And believe me, this was difficult. I could take up this entire episode talking about all the things me and you have been through, good and bad. But I'm going to dive in. Here we go. Let's talk about the family. Me and you undoubtedly have the two coolest wives in this industry, hands down. To put up with our buffoonery and our shenanigans, traveling all over the planet. I guess what I'm touching on here is anybody that thinks it's so glorious. It is. Don't get me wrong. Until you get that phone call from the pregnant wife with a snow shovel in her hand and a flat tire back home, and she's crying, how to make that family unit work in this crazy business. And secondly, I want to talk about this new generation operator, and I'm not talking down on them. I'm literally trying to just understand it. We could give you a $500,000 piece of machinery and everything else you want, keys to the kingdom, and you go out, and then the simplest thing happens: something breaks. You break a hose, and just not only do they not know how to fix it, they're not even willing to help. And that's just a lot different from where me and you started. I mean, think about how many times we had to break into somebody else's shop and break into their toolboxes to make a hose, and then go fix it yourself. And don't forget, now you got to finish what you were doing because the sun's coming up and the people of the daytime are starting to creep out of the hotel looking around, and you got some explaining to do. Love you, brother. Welcome to the Blade Dive.
Wow. Mike Bunnell. Thanks for the questions, buddy. I do want to say that told many people Mike Bunnell is the most complete snowcat operator I've ever met. Guy can build anything. Problem solver in every sense of the phrase. Honored to have him contribute. I think every new aspiring operator needs to listen to episode 3 of the Blade Dive. Listen to it carefully, listen to it twice, 3 times if you need to. Mike touches on some very, very important components of the business there. I know all of my young and upcoming operators have listened to it and have hopefully absorbed it. Anyway, the first question about the wives. Yeah, they're the rocks that we all hold on to. The business that we were in, like Mike said, yeah, it could be glamorous at times or whatever. We're doing something cool, but we were both definitely blessed with picking the right ones right off the bat. As many of the guys that I worked with were, amazing wives that put up with our shit. Us doing this work all around the world and everything. Strong, wonderful women. We'll say that Mrs. Bonnell is one of the strongest people I've ever met. An amazing woman, closest thing to my wife that I've met. She just has it. I mean, and just tough, strong, super, super strong. Her family is the center of her world, just like my wife, and the other wives of the guys I worked with at the beginning with SPT. It's tough, the sacrifices that they had to make, but the support that they gave us also was unreal. I think they recognized that there was a very unique dynamic that we were part of, and understood that it was something really special. It was never lost on us how tough it was for them, and any opportunity that we had to make them part of it, we took it, and it was always just such a breath of fresh air when go to like the Xgames build and be there for 3 weeks grinding and pushing like hell and just really getting after it. And then when the wife starts showing up, it's just like everybody got a smile on their face again. Everybody got that sense of comfort back, because by then we really fucking needed it. It's a very emotional subject for me because, I always, there will always be an element of guilt that I carry with me, that I went and saw certain things and did certain things and didn't have my wife along with me. But, over the years, many in conversation with friends, it would always be asked by people. They would always, if my wife would be talking about me going somewhere and doing something, and they would ask her, well, how come he doesn't take you with me? Or I'm sorry, take you with him. And my wife was always good about explaining to them that, it's work. And when he's there, he's working. And it's not all fun and games. It's not a fucking vacation. And, there were times where, especially early on when we were doing builds with just a few of us and working crazy, tremendous hours and stuff, the wives would show up right about the time the events were starting. I'm talking mainly about Xgames, and it's showtime, and everything's a go, and we've been driving hard for 3 weeks or whatever, and very little sleep, and I don't know how many times when my wife showed up, got to hug her and kiss her, say hello, show her where the room's at, and boom, I'm back out in the snowcat. And don't get me wrong, we took them out and had a good time and tried to make the best of it. But they also, really understood that we were there to do a job, and they were very supportive of that. There's that lost time away from family. It's hard to get back. But I think so many of us were very blessed to have wives that were very supportive and understood that we were part of a unique opportunity. And I don't know, it's a very emotional subject to talk about, and something that we struggled with. I think our wives also understood that it was lonely for them when we weren't at home, but they knew we understood that, but they also understood that we were lonely being away from home as well, and we could be surrounded by a bunch of other cat drivers and everything, but still feel very lonely. We missed them every day, and I don't know. That's a tough one. I can go on and on. And
Yeah. Well, I was just gonna say, like Jeremiah Pebley. I never had the chance to meet him, and well, one of the things that Jeremy Carpenter and I were chopping up about, Jeremy, and he's, he said, "Do you think this is gonna be kosher?" And I said, "No, send it." And he said, "Well, one of the things that Jeremiah always said when he was asked, I think it was specifically when he was asked, hey, you just went over to Japan. How was Japan? What did Japan look like?"
the
And
inside of a snowcat.
the inside of a snowcat. And I think that it's really important, and this is why I love that Mike sent it this direction, because you and I have just recently caught up about what it's like to hire new people, or also what it's like to just be a part of something that's a very higher level conversation, maybe. And this is the difference between probably the Blade Dive podcast and any other out there. It's real, and it is me being willing to, and you being willing to talk about the reality of the situation, but from a good point of view. Is it going to be some sacrifice? Is there going to be some sacrifice? Yes. But I don't think there's going to be zero sacrifice in anything that you want to pursue. I wouldn't want to sell my soul for anything, but I definitely would want to chase something that I'm passionate about. My wife asks me all the time, why are you so transfixed on the snow industry and on the resort industry or the terrain park world? And not from a negative point of view, she's asking that. She's just genuinely curious, and I respect that. And I think that there are a lot of wives out there that say, like, hey, look, it's a machine, or it's an industry. You can go do something else. And it's kind of like the old phrase of, you can take the mountains out of the man, but you can't, but you'll never be able to take, I'm sorry, you can remove the man from the mountains, but you'll never be able to take the mountains out of the man. And I think that's where my head, my soul, my heart is at, when it's in me sitting in that seat and just having the opportunity to shove snow, or being in the most vertigoed situation where I can't see left, right, backwards, or forwards, but I know the wind's blowing and there's snow falling out of the sky, and I'm sitting in this incredible piece of equipment, and there's an objective there. But there's a lot that happens outside of the operations world on the mountain at home, in an entirely different operations world at home. It's its whole other umbrella. And there's a lot of sacrifice that happens to be able to let the guys and gals and people that are up there at the mountains operating machines get to operate them. There's kids at home, there's dogs at home, there's a mortgage to pay, there's food to cook, there's all kinds of things.
I mean, jokingly, my wife for years has referred to snowcats as the other woman. Okay, she she knows that's my love and everything, and understands that passion, and I know Rochelle does with Mike also, and I mean, a perfect case, and a perfect example of this is just talking with Mike, just a while back. I mean, here's the guy, he's the the icon. He's the ringleader, the guy that started so much and everything. He's running winch up at Kirkwood, and he's in his prime. It's not about the glitz and glory of the event. It's about running the snowcat. And our wives understand that. It's what drives us. It's our passion. My wife, we're married very young. We were, as they say, poor as church mice. I started running a snowcat. We were living in the freaking projects, and telling her, kept telling her it was going to pay off. It was going to lead to something. I really liked it. And, she stood by me. But, when I was 20 years old, I got in a real bad accident, got my legs broken, my arms broken, my face busted up. And, she always told people that she was around me when I was not able to work. So when I had to go out on the road, whether it was snowcatting or whether it was doing excavation work, she would rather see me able to work and passionate and doing things than not, because she experienced me not physically being able to do that shit. And she still supports me in that way to this day, and I'm eternally grateful for it. Yeah, man, the impact on the home life and was tough, and some hard choices had to be made. But the way that I think we always got through it, me and my wife, and I think others would say the same, is that when you're away from your spouse and your family for long amounts of time like that, the key to making it doable and successful is when you do have time together, you make the best of it. It's what you do. When you have time away, when you have time together, you make the most of it.
I was looking forward to this conversation because of that question right there. I'm in a position where I've got this young family that I have, and I was very much looking forward to your answer to that one. So selfishly, I'm grateful for the insight. I do want to know, God, we've already been recording for 48 minutes and we haven't even gotten, this is amazing. I love this podcast. He did mention something, and I very much appreciate his second question with respect to, new generations of operators. And I think what he was alluding to was their, we kind of talked about it, the instantaneous results of what it's like to attain success, whether it's behind the sticks or whether it's a status job title type of thing. But, your take on that, because he pretty much described what it was like for both of you coming up in the industry.
Well, I want to touch on what me and Benell refer to as the struggle. Okay. And the observation is that there are a lot of younger operators that never experienced the struggle. There were younger operators that I worked with at SBT that never had to deal with the struggle. And the question now is, what is the struggle? The struggle is, not having the brand new 400 Park Pro, not having the unlimited budget to build jibs. The struggle is, okay, you get this amount of time to go build a park, and then you got to go out and take care of the rest of the mountain. You've got to go up and build Xgames with a fucking basket cat, and going through the struggle. And yeah, it's not ideal. It's not something you want to do, but maybe it gives you a better appreciation for the resources that you have. And maybe you ask for less. Maybe you come to the realization that, hey, I'd rather run a clapped out BR 350 for $500 a day than run a brand spanking new snowcat with a subwoofer for $12 an hour. I know that sounds kind of harsh, but there were definitely some struggles that we had to deal with that we don't wish on the younger operators. That maybe we're in a position where we can prevent them from having to deal with those struggles. Give them the best equipment, give them the good pay, so forth and so on. But there is that sense that without ever experiencing that struggle, you never have a full appreciation for what you have. And I'm not going to sit here and say that the young operators, there's no hope for the world. Quite the contrary. In my travels with Prinoth, I came across some spectacular young operators that have tremendous potential that, but have these great resources, these wonderful modern machines that we have today. So then the question is asked, do we help them grow by making sure they experience the struggle, or do we just make things as easy as possible? And are we, one way or the other, are we denying their opportunity for growth? If we keep them in an old clapped out machine, are we denying them the opportunity to be creative and build new things? If we put them in a brand spanking new machine and let them tear the fuck out of it, are we denying them the knowledge of the responsibility of that's required to take care of a machine? I've had hours of conversation with Benell about this 10 years ago. Saw it as an issue then. It's an ongoing dilemma out there, and something that the old salty dogs will like us will always be saying, well, back when I was younger, we took an old clapped out BR 275 and built this and built that, and now you need all these features. But yet when we get in one of these brand new cats, we're like, holy shit, look what we can do with this thing. And where guys like me and Mike Benell struggle a little bit is it's, we grew up with tough supervision, with hard nosed, no bullshit. We're not always treated good when we were taught how to do things, and in the minds of today, in the eyes of today's generation, but my take on it, and what always gets me back to center, is I think about how Frank Wells dealt with young operators, and it is the absolute ideal way to deal with young operators. Is, here, of course, everybody knows Frank. I mean, he is, my God, an Xgames athlete, one of the most well-known pipe builders ever in the world. Super great guy. Anybody that's ever met him knows he's just a super good guy. But the biggest thing I saw from Frank over the years of seeing him deal with young operators, including my own son, who cut the pipe at Buttermilk for a couple of years, cut Frank's pipe after X Games was done, is Frank would get with a young operator, no matter if they were just starting out or had a few years under their belt, and he convinced them that they were professionals. Okay. And I saw that have such a positive impact on so many operators, including my son, that getting over that bridge, that, oh my God, I'm cutting the pipe with Frank Wells. He was in there saying, no, you got this, and you're gonna get it, and you're a professional, and you have responsibility, and you take pride in this, and you're gonna be just fine. And he didn't demean them. He didn't knock them down. He wasn't tough. The biggest component, again, and I'll say it over and over again, is he showed them that they were professionals. and they had a job to do, and it was very important. And that inspiring a young person in a snowcat in that manner, instead of being the hard ass and coming down hard on them, is going to pay much more dividends in the end. And not everybody is capable of doing that. And the thing is, guys like me and Mike at times probably came across as real hard to young operators. It wasn't our intention. That was just the way we were brought up. Where Frank was just a master at taking a kid that couldn't hit the fucking snow with the blade if he tried, and convincing him that he was a professional, and instilling that pride in him. And that's what needs to happen with the young generation. We don't need to knock them and say they've got it easy because they have all these nice cats and everything. We need to find a way to inspire them to have the same love of the craft that we have. And we're not all good at it, but still got to try.
I don't think you're the first person to say that about Frank. I think I've talked to a couple other people that have said that about Frank too, as far as his level of empathy, the ability to teach, kind of take a step back, have a aerial view of the situation to be able to approach that younger generation. And Frank's complimented a couple different folk, one of which was Joel Bowman at Mammoth. He's definitely thrown a bit of a nod to Joel, just what it is to be up there, work in that scenario, and have promise. And I thought that was really cool. You and I could definitely keep chopping that topic up for a couple hours, I feel like, but I do want to keep moving on. With respect to the youth, I do want to go here because this is something that I positioned this event as the end all be all for the longest time when I was falling in love with snowboarding, because snowboarding to me and skiing to me was something that was it was a competitive sport, but it could also be an individualistic opportunity for me to be me. But if I wanted to take it further, there was this thing called USASA Nationals, and at the time, that would have been, I'm dating myself, but that's okay, I'm 38. It would have been 2001. I think around in that era. Maybe a little later, but I'm pretty sure it was 2000, 2001, maybe 2002. But at that point in time, it was at Angel Fire, I'm pretty sure.
2004.
2004. Okay, so there we go. So 2004. So a little early, but so 2004, it was there. And one of the things that I witnessed people in North Carolina, people in Tennessee, people traveling from Virginia, because that's where I'm from. I'm from the eastern half of the United States. I witnessed them making moves with their family out to Angel Fire. I remember David Sheffley. I don't even know if that name rings a bell, but his family moved out to Angel Fire, New Mexico, so that Davey could participate in the Nationals or compete or understand what it was like to be on snow out there, really, throughout the entire year, so that there was just an idea of what the layout could be. But it was taken seriously. It was very competitive. People would compete in our USASA circuit in North Carolina. They would qualify, and then the harder part became getting out there, right? Because there's all kinds of financial expense to make that happen. But just backtracking here, circling back to operations, from stories of riders growing up and, the trip of everyone wanting to go out there after they have qualified, Nationals in its infancy, and I don't know if this is how you feel, just an opinion, but would you say that Nationals was fueled by Angel Fire's ability and just the desire to host the event, or was it something that needed a host to just exist? It was such a spectacle at that point in time. And what was it like being part of something early on that really catapulted so many different athletes' careers?
real quick touch on David Sheffley. Yeah, he's still up here, and hopefully he's going to be building some features for me this winter.
Sweet. No idea
yeah.
that was he originally at Keystone? Was he? Didn't he
Yeah.
go? Didn't he go over to Keystone? Okay, cool.
Yeah, he was at Keystone, and yeah, he's up here, and great guy. Really like him. The when Nationals was here at Angel Fire, it had over 1,100 competitors. It was the biggest amateur freestyle event in the world at the time as far as number of competitors. I think it already had a little bit of traction before then, and our mountain manager at the time, John Mahana, who had came over from Bear Mountain, pushed hard to get it up here, and of course Mother Nature did not cooperate. John hired Snow Park Technologies to come in and do the build, because we had a half pipe, but we hadn't done an 18-foot pipe. And Frank and Gunny came up, and that's when I first met Frank. And I had actually just resigned from Angel Fire Resort, was going to go back into the family excavation business. So my last 2 weeks working for Angel Fire Resort was working with Frank and Gunny doing nationals. And didn't have quite enough snow. Weather had got real warm. I worked with Frank on the pipe. We stacked up the walls, got them both about halfway stacked, and then Frank started prepping pipe and pushing snow to me, and I was building wall with prep snow, and Frank got the pipe built all the way to the bottom, and the event went off well. I mean, it was a battle, because it was, I think, on one of the last days at top 70 degrees. Grass was starting to turn green outside of the pipe, and but man, there were some heavy hitters that were young at the time that competed in that. I believe Danny Davis, Mason Aguirre, to name a couple that were there, and talked with people years after that just had a blast being here. It was really something good for our community to have. A lot of people here, and kind of put us on the map for a little while, and on a personal level, that's how I got my start with Snow Park Technologies. That was the first time I worked with Frank and Gunny, and the following year I was at Xgames. So, but yeah, Nationals is just it's a wonderful platform for we have a lot of our local athletes here that have gone to Nationals and had just wonderful experiences, and some got to ride some Elliott cone jumps and over at Copper, and it's been a great experience for our kids, and just the sheer number of competitors that get to compete in it, it's just a wonderful thing. It really is.
Here's a question for you: if you could have it back, would you have it back?
No, I think it would be great to have here again. The thing is, the progression of the athletes between 2004 and now is pretty extreme, and my biggest worry would be able to create a venue that athletes have grown accustomed to, and being able to generate the amount of snow. You've got 12, 13-year-old kids now that are doing shit that's way bigger and gnarlier than what mainstream athletes were doing in 2005 in the X Games. So that would be the biggest worry. And given the time of year that it takes place, it might be kind of tough for us to pull off, but I'd damn sure love to give it a try.
You heard it here, folks. So just in its infancy, I know that you said, John was interested in having SPT come out and do the build and make it work, but was it was it an idea that literally was a, hey, kind of a, it's not what you know, it's who you know, and it's Angel Fire can definitely host something like this? Or was it something more than that? Because I loved how there was just this very, as you said, like 1,100 people, very great for the community. But I loved how, the whole nation, it seemed like, at least, just from my point of view, I'd have to picture it would be that way. But the kids that were stoked on being a part of it, I was stoked to not participate, but I was stoked to hear about it nonetheless through the grapevine. I don't know it was if it was that way, if it was very much kind of like a, hey, we can pull it off an Angel Fire, or if it was a, here, take this, we can't do it. I don't know. Maybe unpack that a little bit more for us. How did it land there at Angel Fire?
Well, John Mahana he was one of those guys like up there with John Rice and Dick Kuhn and at Snow Summit. They were the older generation that really backed the freestyle movement, at a time when it could potentially go away. And when he came to Angel Fire, he brought this energy. He wanted to bring that energy of the freestyle movement in the terrain parks to Angel Fire, and wanted to prove that we could pull it off. And as bad as the conditions were, not many places could have pulled it off with that bad of conditions. And Frank would still talk to this day about what a nightmare it was for him. But it is one of the biggest achievements that I ever saw with snowcat work, being able to build that 18-foot pipe in Angel Fire in 70-degree temperatures. Frank was just unbelievable and pulled it off. And even though we as builders knew we could have it better if we had more snow and everything, the true essence of Nationals is that 1,100 people showed up and had a great time and made the most of it. And that's the true essence of amateur events, is that people are going to do the best to make the best memories out of it. And I know I'm probably not clearly answering your question, but it all stemmed from John Mahana being so passionate about freestyle and terrain parks. He himself being a renowned freestyle aerialist and still one of the best skiers I've ever seen. He had a passion about it and wanted to bring it to Angel Fire. And there was a time when we had a meeting, and Gunny and Frank are there. I mean, these are the guys, and they're saying, man, we don't know if we can pull this off. And Mahana says, we have to. We've got too much involved in this, and we promised we can do it. We need to pull it off. And we did, and it ended up going pretty good. And, real quick, funny story. A couple of years after that, I was working Xgames, and we had a night we got off a little early, so we go into town, go to Belly Up in Aspen. I'm wearing this jacket that says Angel Fire Snowcats on the back, and this guy taps me on the shoulder and says, hey, you from Angel Fire? And I said, yeah. And he said, man, we were there for Nationals, and we had such a great time. The pipe was perfect. It was so much fun. The restaurant there had the best barbecue we'd ever had, all this stuff. And it was fucking Danny Davis,
No way.
And of course, then shortly thereafter, he was with Mason Aguirre. They got kicked out of the bar because they weren't 21 yet. But it was really cool and really satisfying for me that those guys remembered that, and they appreciated it, and they said the vibe was good, and the thing is, they understood the weather changed, and it was a challenge and everything, but they made the most of it. And I think it was one of the greatest things that ever happened in Angel Fire.
Yes, and that's really why I wanted to bring that up. It's cool when you could create an event, and I think that events bring a lot of atmosphere, and that's great. But when it impacts a culture and it impacts a community, and there's a whole population that centers around it and gets behind it, there's a bigger story there, and that's why. Again, that's why the blade dive exists. I mean, that was so cool. That was so cool to hear you.
Parker, it's, hate to be selfish, but it worked out pretty fucking good for me. You know, I
Yeah,
mean,
no, you can be selfish totally. You're allowed to be a little selfish for sure.
we did nationals, and then about a month later, Gunny called me and asked me if I wanted to do a little dirt work at the DC Mountain Lab, and went that following September, did that, and a couple weeks after that, he asked me if I wanted to work Xgames, and 12 years later, man, I had seen the world, and it's amazing. And there were some athletes in that event. I'm sorry I can't list them all. My memory's too bad, but there were some heavy hitters that competed in nationals, and are still some of the best known snowboarders to this day.
Well, besides nationals, if you were to maybe describe, I know this is going to be tough in one word, but maybe it's a sentence. How would you position Angel Fire? How would you describe it?
How I would describe it today is, with one word, is fortunate. Okay, and this is in regards to what we have all been dealing with for the last year and a half, and that's COVID. Okay, something that I'm very proud of that we have been able to accomplish here is, we have a wonderful gravity mountain bike park here. Many say the best in North America, if not just the United States. COVID sets in, just like everybody else, our season gets cut short. We roll into a summer season, have the best summer season we've ever had. And through it all, we haven't had a single business closed down in this town. I know we had some that really had some tough times, particularly the restaurants. This town is at full employment. Building industry's going strong. Real estate's doing good. As a community, Angel Fire and the ski area and the community are one. It's everything is centered around the success of this place, and we survived so much better than so many other communities. Everybody kept their jobs. Uh, every we provided opportunity for people to come and enjoy the outdoors. There's so many communities across the country that had businesses closed down, people lose their jobs, experience financial devastation. We have thrived as a community here because everybody stayed together, and we figured out a way to operate, be successful, do the best that we could. And that's why I say Angel Fire right now, described in one word, we're very fortunate.
I want to throw another special guest question in. It's from your son, John Eppler. And jumping back to the family dynamic, the aspect there of just you and your sons being both in the business at one point in time, I think fortunate to have you around. And I'll let John get to that question. So I'm going to play it for you now. Here we go.
How would you motivate someone who has a new marriage or small children to stay in this line of work? And how did you stay on point being away?
Oh man, I knew I was probably get one of the toughest questions from my own son. At first I would have to apologize and say, if anybody's looking for the ideal answer, you're not going to get it. There is, and coming from my son, it's special because he grew up, with me being gone on the road a lot, and now has had to experience the the work in this business, having children of his own. I love you, son, and I thank you for the question. All I will say is that, a person will have to make the choice at some point between being the ideal father in the male's case or being the ideal provider. And the choice you will have to make will be based on what's best for your family. And, you have to understand that whatever choice you make that you decide is best for your family is the right choice. If you make the choice of what's best for you as an individual, it's probably not going to be the right one. And, when my son John called me up and told me he was going to be leaving engineering school to run Snowcat, I don't know, maybe a lot of fathers would say, you're crazy. Why the fuck would you want to do this? You need to get a good steady job or whatever. I felt I would have been a hypocrite to deny him the opportunity to do something that I love so much. So I told him that, you're not going to get rich running a Snowcat, but you're going to experience wealth that very few people will understand. And I think him and my son Alex both got to realize that between running Snowcat and Aspen, Snowmass, Angel Fire, and down in Australia, they got to experience some wonderful things. But as I saw my older son start his family and everything and start to see the strain, I knew that the time might come where he had to make that choice. And he has made the choice to spend more time with the family and not run Snowcat. And it's the right choice because he made the choice of what he feels is best for his family. So, that's the easy, quick answer. And maybe I'm trying to bail out is as long as the choice you make is what's best for your family, then it's the right choice.
No, I don't think you're trying to bail out. I don't think you're trying to Louis Vito the answer there. Uh, but it is a subject that, when I talked to John and I was catching up with him about what it was going to be like talking to you on the Blade Dive and having you contribute to the podcast and having John jump on and be a special guest question. It was, I can knock that out of the park. I definitely, no problem. I'll ask my dad a question. And in my head, after hanging up the phone, I said, what the fuck would I say to my dad if I had to ask him a question about a career that I was in? Because I can relate. Because my father was in the business of commercial lawnmowers and a distribution center there in Tennessee. And I worked for my dad for almost 4.5 years. That was a stint of my technical service advisor position that I had there, dealing with over 180 customers, dealing with 30 to 50 phone calls a day, transitioning out of the snow industry and into an industry that I had no idea what to do with. But I deployed what I knew I was passionate about, and that was people and the finished product. And maybe I'm not laying corduroy, but these people were laying stripes in the lawn with their lawnmower. And, if my dad is listening, which I know he is, and I'm not making this about me, I'm making this about the subject of the conversation, the fact that John's bringing it up. It is very difficult to make that choice, as you mentioned, make a decision for you or make a decision for your family as the provider. And whichever decision you make is in the best interest, hopefully, for the family and not necessarily you being selfish. But I think it's important for everybody to know that, just as you mentioned, it's one thing for you to live your life, and I think this is what you were getting at. It's one thing for you to live your life filled with regrets, but it's another for you to take a risk and embrace something that maybe nobody will truly ever understand how rich you can become from the relationships and the knowledge that you gain in those experiences. But you also never know where those things will lead you. And I think that's what I would kind of say to my dad is that,
Yeah.
I'm in it. I took a risk, but this is what I love doing, and because of it, it's worth it to me, and we're not starving. But
Yeah.
it's something that I will yeah. I hung up the phone with John, and I literally just was like, man, what in the world? That was a big ask. I'm sure John probably hung up the phone with me and was like, yeah, Parker, I know you need that question by Saturday, but it's going to be late. It's going to be
Well,
days late.
when I first started running snowcat, my kids were young, and I know it was tough for them. And as they got older, they told me stories about how they would pretend they were sleeping, and my wife went to bed. Then they would wake up, and they would go out and look through the window and wait till they would see the lights coming from my truck when I got home from running snowcat. And that'd be 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. And then they would run into their bedroom and pretend they were sleeping when I got home. And it just saddened me to know that, and they said they would be up because they were worried about me. And then when I go to work for Snow Park Technologies, my kids were grown, and for them it was kind of, oh, cool, awesome, Dad's going to work for Xgames. But then, so some of my SBT brothers were starting their families at that time. But Benell's babies were real young, and this was after couple of years that I was with SBT, and then I started to see them having to contend with being away from their babies. And it's one thing when your kids are older and they're like, oh, cool, Dad's at X Games. But then when they're babies, they're asking Mom, where's Dad? you know and seeing that the strain that it had on the brothers was tough. It really was, and affected some of them in a really hard way. Um, and uh, and I don't know, it was part of the change with SBT, and that's growth. Guys get older and start having families, perspective changes, and it was a wonderful thing seeing them all start their families. But seeing the strain that it had on them and their wives was tough. Something I'll never forget.
Yeah, there's oh man, what is it? There's time. Yeah, that's what it was. Time is the only true currency that can never really be refunded.
Yeah.
Ever. And I know I'm throwing a lot at you right now, and I do want to transition into the X Games and the SPT and it being the highlight. And my question that I had written to you kind of was about that piece. And I'm going to let Tyrone Coyne speak to it. So hopefully I push the right button here. And this is our next special guest question from Tyrone. Here we go.
Parker, how's it going? Kurt, thanks for the opportunity to give you a question. Love you, buddy. And welcome to the Blade Dive. So this is a three-parter for you, buddy. How was it that you came to work with SPT? What talent did they see in you that brought you to the table with that company? And then with your background, with all your dirt and snowcat experience, which didn't necessarily translate into the train park world at the time, what was your experience like stepping into that role with that company? And finally, what were your takeaways from working with all of us and for that company? The highest high and the lowest low, buddy. Kurt, miss you. You're the goddamn man. Love you to pieces. And someday we'll be drinking beers again soon. You take care. See you, Parker.
Tyrone, love you too, buddy. Great times and some rough times too, but we're old school. We deal with the rough times without getting our feelings hurt. So, yeah, how did I break in with SBT? I don't know, man. I asked myself that question for 12 years. I every year I was humbled. I was pinching myself, wondering if I was dreaming. I'm you said, it said many times, how did this old ditch digger from nowhere, New Mexico, end up with these guys? Was very blessed. I ain't gonna lie. I think I, brought a little bit to the table. I had, coming from Angel Fire, I had the ability to do a lot with little snow. I was always flattered when Bunnell would say, Grandpa knows how to generate material.
Oh man.
I had no problem getting out of the cat with a snow probe and finding snow and, doing onion peel and leaving, 6 inches above the reef and whatever it took to generate as much snow as possible. Had my little niche there. I was dumb enough to figure out a way to get an excavator up on the hill to set jibs and cut out features and stuff, and got into pretty gnarly situations with an excavator, but we figured out how to do it, and a lot of people are doing it now. It's possible, it's doable. Just we saw them do it in Japan and started doing it from there on out.
Well, I know you mentioned like Angel Fire was kind of a part of that, because that's where you met Gunny and you met Mike, right? And
yeah, well, no, I met Mike in 2005 when first went to Xgames.
Copy.
And yeah, that was my first year, and I'll never forget when I first arrived for Xgames. I wasn't there for the start of the build. I was only there for a couple of weeks, but I go in, I get introduced to Mike Bunnell, Josh Chavez, Jeremiah Pebley, Jeff Flood. These are the guys I'd been reading about in Scary Management magazine, seeing on videos. These were the guys, and there I was, part of the crew, and I'm having a little trouble remembering the rest of Tyrone's questions because I just got so many fond memories going through my head right now.
Yeah. Well, I was just like real quick, just kind of how you got into it and how you broke into that. I called it a dynamic because it was an ever-changing situation. People come, people go, but there was a really solid crew there for quite some time. But how you got into that, and that's why I kind of went back to that Angel Fire piece. Was it the time that you met Gunny? Was it a time before that? But was it more or less just like a tryout, or was it a pursuit? And here's why I said that, because Kevin Soller is somebody that we've had on the show before, and one of the things that he mentioned to me was, I didn't get a shot at being a part of that team because I was the guy that could go out and build the best jump. And he said, that's where I feel like people are kind of misunderstood there with roles. And that's where he said, I feel like this younger generation could really understand a little bit more of the meaning of what it is to be an operator, because he said, I got a shot at that team because I could move material, because I understood what it was to come in there and have a job. I wasn't coming in there to just, shape a takeoff.
Well, Parker, I mean, over the years, and especially when I worked with Prinoth, I got asked the question many times, how did you get your shot with SBT?
Yeah.
And what I tried to tell those people to motivate them, and it's the absolute truth, Gunny and Frank come in to work for Nationals, and they asked for a couple of us that were here at Angel Fire to help. Mahana asked me if I could help. Like I said, I'd already given my 2 weeks notice, and I got that opportunity, and I worked my ass off. I was there every night, and I showed them what I could do and everything. And that's the message that I conveyed when people ask that question, is that if you get the opportunity and you have a company like that come in to do an event, you make an impression, you show up and you work. And anybody out there now, you got Charles Beckinsale comes to your mountain to build jumps. I don't care if you're off the clock, you go up and you get involved, and you meet the guy and you show interest. And is that going to lead to an opportunity? Maybe not, but you need to be prepared for when that little window of opportunity comes by. Make yourself noticed, and you make yourself noticed by hard work and dedication and showing that you have pride. And I fully think that's why Gunny gave me a shot, and something I'll be eternally grateful for. But I attribute it to, we do nationals here, have extremely challenging conditions, but I didn't fucking waver. And John Mahana said we need to pull it off, and I'm like, you know what, I'm going to do everything I can to pull it off. And yeah, that's how I got the opportunity. And then and then for 12 years I did everything I could to prove and maintain that opportunity and prove that I deserve to be there. I, first and foremost, when I started with them, I had 10 years experience under my belt. Had worked at the Olympics and everything, and thought I was a pretty good snowcat operator. The biggest takeaway that I got, and I still hold true to it today, and it's one of the things I truly love about running snowcat, even after 30 years, is there is opportunity to learn something new every year. And I thought I could move snow until I got with those guys and saw ways to move snow in a different way. And I just to understand that there is no limit to what can be done with the snowcat. The only thing that limits you is the amount of snow you have to work with. You can build things so big, you can make things so steep, you can do so much. We were doing things with cats in 2007 that nobody thought the cats were capable of doing that at the time, and that's my biggest takeaway is entering into that group at a time when the progression was moving so rapidly and things were getting so much bigger, so much faster, changing so much, and having to solve the problems and figuring out how to do it, and reaching the points where you were building things that were teetering on the edge of beyond the capabilities of snow production at that area. Man, it just, I could go on for an hour just about the things that I learned from working with those guys and being a part of that whole period of progression that was the most extreme period of progression in the size of jumps, the scope of work, everything. It was just unbelievable to be part of that.
Yeah, really cool, really cool. Well, huge shout out to Tyrone for contributing. That was awesome.
Yeah, I really appreciate it, Tyrone. Just one of my favorite human beings, man.
Tyrone did a really good job of kind of breaking the ice. And one of the things that I had kind of described within a question was breaking into that dynamic, that crew. And to follow up on that, it's really that that crew, as you have kind of mentioned prior to, like you said, you've been asked that your whole career. How did you get in? How did you do it? And you went in to talk about how it was hard work and showing up and taking advantage of, the opportunity that was in front of you to show those guys and gals what you could do. But, no disrespect to that team, but they definitely had a stereotype, not in a negative way, but just in a kind of how we've already termed it. It's tough to penetrate. You've got some of the top operators in the world. You've got a big brand name. And we've discussed whether or not it was kind of like a constant pursuit, if it was a tryout, but it was really kind of right place, right time. But what are your thoughts there on, again, revisiting breaking into that dynamic, be it that it may have been a stereotype of top operators, big brand name, and you coming in there doing your thing and understanding what your role was? What was that like? How did that happen?
Well, the thing is that it all started with that opportunity to get on the crew. And when I first did get on the crew, at first glance, you would say there was a stereotype, but there was absolutely no stereotype. There were more differences between the people than there were similarities. And that's what was real interesting about the dynamic, is you had all of these guys, these all of us were absolute alpha males that were so totally different. There was no one stereotype. I mean, you had Benel and his personality. You had Frank, this Xgames pipe icon. He was the guy in the day that started cutting pipe and became the best. You had Corley, that was an Xgames competitor. Elliot, this good old boy from Missouri, that could fucking crush the snow and was a real visionary. And we were this group of people that were very different, but yet had a real common goal, and that was to do the job and do the project. I think as time went on, and maybe there was this need to create this stereotype to try to make everybody the same, make everybody think the same, make everybody act the same, make everybody do the same things. I ain't gonna lie, it seemed kind of toxic. Everybody had their own individuality, and it was a very unique, strong dynamic. Was it sustainable? No, it probably wasn't. The But to say there was a stereotype, like I said before, I asked myself many times, what did I deserve to be on this crew? This was from a professional level, because all of these people were just so dynamic in their jobs. I was humbled by seeing what they were capable of. But there really wasn't anybody on the crew that was the same. I think when we reached the point where maybe everybody was expected to act the same, then we got into the realm of where we were controlling people and asking them to change their personalities. And I'm going to be very frank about this. It was very damaging, because anytime you try to control people and make the focus, it's very socially damaging. But when you have the opportunity to bring unique individuals together with a common goal of controlling the thing. And what the thing is the job. It's the project. It's the build. It's the getting the jump built, getting the half pipe built, whatever. If you control the task, then wonderful things happen. But when you get to a point where the need arises to control people, and change them, it's not sustainable. It's damaging, and spirits are killed. Um, yeah, that's a very tough subject, because that's exactly what happened, man. And it was one of the saddest things to see is seeing people have their spirits broken because they were expected to change.
Mm.
Was it necessary? Possibly. It's one of the brutal parts of business, man. Sometimes you can have a wonderful, glorious thing going on that's not sustainable, and but business needs to move on. Business needs to change, and yeah, some things are too good to be true.
I think before we get too far along in this, I know we've got my questions, we've got people's questions, we've got push road questions, and that's what I want to get into right now is the push road questions of the day.
The push road question of the day.
That is right. The push road questions, that's what they've turned into, questions of the day. And it's been really cool. I think just seeing the evolution of the show. We started off with one, and we've really opened it up to the community because that's what we are right now, an extension of the operations world and the snowcat world, and it's exciting to be a part of it. So we we had a lot roll in for Kurt, and I've got to be fair, as I've said to everybody. We try to keep it between 3 to 5. So we have picked 4 that I think are really cool, and we're going to have Kurt elaborate on those. But first push road question comes from Walter at Prinoth. Awesome that he's contributed to the show. Thanks, Walt. But Walt wants to know, where was your favorite demo experience? I think I might know, but I figured I'd ask.
Wow. My favorite demo experience. I had a lot of great ones. That is a very, very tough question. It's all relative to what aspect of the job, and there were many that were satisfying. But I gotta say, one of my best experiences was at Blue Mountain, Pennsylvania. Just because of the type of operators that I met there. It was Blue Mountain is, by many people's standards, is kind of a smaller mountain, but does a tremendous volume of skiers. And the mountain just gets ripped up over the course of a day and night skiing and everything. And there was a crew of operators there that, talking about what me and Benell refer to as the struggle. These kids, they know the struggle. They had some older cats. They took good care of them. They were all about the snow management, moving snow, recovering things. Had really good blade skills. If I remember correct, most of those kids hadn't had a day off all season. They just had this tremendous work ethic. I wish I could name them all. They all made a big impression on me. Kristen Leinart in Terrain Park, she was amazing. Ty Fox, one of their main operators there, was just a true pure operator. Really enjoyed the experience with him. They were absolutely 100% PB place. I was told I was going into hostile territory, and it was such a pleasant experience because almost every person I put in that demo cat, by the time we were 10 minutes away from the shop, they had a feel for the joystick, which was foreign to them. They were comfortable with it. They just settled in. They were true operators. They negotiated the joystick and knew what they needed to do, and they just started working. It was it was one of the most solid, well-rounded crew of operators that that I came across in all of my travels. And I'm happy to say that a couple of them I still communicate with from time to time to this day. It was a truly good experience. But I had many good experiences at a lot of places. I love the Midwest, the small hills out in the Midwest. Found some great operators with tremendous work ethic, and yeah, just there's no way I could really pinpoint one, but I was definitely still to this day blown away by the experience I had at Blue Mountain, Pennsylvania.
And I think this is amazing. I do have a question from Kristen Leonard, and
Nice.
And it is a push road question from Kristen, and Kristen asks, what was it like to be able to get out and get hands-on with so many different programs and operators? And what was the most rewarding and or frustrating part of that? And her second question is, what is your proudest achievement within the snow sports industry?
Wow. Okay. First question, definitely the biggest satisfaction being out demoing and seeing all the different areas and operators and programs was seeing just how many wonderful operators there are out there. And for to people to think that the only good operators are working for some big conglomerate or working for a specialty company or whatever is wrong. There are some people out there that are doing the task beautifully on a nightly basis. They're driven, a lot of pride. That was the most satisfying thing. Also, another satisfying thing was, seeing going to places where I demoed over the course of 3 years and seeing the progression of certain operators. There was a young operator at Granite Peak, Wisconsin, which it was a lot like Blue Mountain, a real strong crew of real good operators, real good, strong work ethic. Guy named Adam there kind of was the lead, was just tremendous. But there was a kid that worked the park there that my friend Ben Finn actually helped him get in down at Perisher in Australia, and he's progressed into a hell of an operator. And just seeing him first year being somebody that had just got into a cat to really taking it to another level, that was very, very satisfying, and way more satisfaction than disappointments while I was out demoing. Probably the biggest disappointment when I was out demoing was encountering operators that had a lot of years of experience that were kind of in a rut. And, I came across some guys that were rolling up on 40 years of experience that I was real disappointed in them. I didn't think they were really all that great. And, it's tough to say, but I don't think they had 40 years of experience. They just had 1 year of experience that they repeated 40 times. And I'm a little bitter about guys like that, because I think they're the ones that have impacted the industry in a negative way and kept pay down and created the perception that cat operators can go up and sleep half the night, not have any pride, and just do the bare minimum. And so fuck them. I'm a little bitter towards those guys, but very, very inspired by a lot of operators that I met, a lot of young and up and coming operators. That was a great experience seeing that.
Well, it had to have been, and I can only imagine what it was like, because I had just a small portion of exposure to people who were not experiencing the same type of joy. I guess that's maybe how I would describe it, like the joy of being out there and making a contribution daily and taking an interest in the craft. And yeah, there are long nights and it can be frustrating, but nonetheless, we're all in it together, and you're only as strong you're only as strong as your weakest link. And because of that, there are people that bring others down. Yeah, I can 125% get behind that. We don't need to be people who are bringing other people down. We don't need to reflect poorly on one another by misrepresenting what the job can be. I think if we've got somebody that we can coach, that's something that Dave Franzen mentioned too. It's being a converter, making sure that maybe we can convert people over to doing the job well. And if we can't, then at least we've tried. But maintaining that negative attitude all throughout your career or mindset of what it is to be a part of a team. Yeah,
Well,
that's hard.
and I know
Hard to
that
support
this
that.
may not totally be in line with Kristen's question, which I really appreciate and really respect her as an operator. She's really good. One of the saddest things I've seen in the industry is somebody that has all of the skills that anybody would dream of having, and they lose their inspiration or their love for the craft. I saw that. I'll leave names out, but some of a couple of guys that I work with that when I saw them lose their spirit for the craft, in my eyes, it would be like hearing Michael Jordan say, "Fuck basketball, I hate it. I never want to play it again." And I experienced that with a couple of guys, and it was the most heartbreaking thing I ever experienced. But that's one thing that makes me even more angry at the guys that just never had the pride to begin with, that knock the whole industry down because, like I said, they've got 1 year of experience that they've repeated 20, 30, 40 times. And sorry, and that's an emotional subject for me. So
No, I love it. That's what we are here on the Blade Dive for sure. I do. Kristen's second question is very similar to Ty Fox's question. Ty has a question for you as well, which is rad. And kind of they both want to know favorite memory in all of your years, or kind of proudest achievement. We'll combine both of those and have it be kind of a joint effort there. Proudest achievement, fondest memory.
ooh, man, that's tough to nail down to one. I would say, my proudest achievement and my best memory. Some of y'all might not think this is directly related to snowcatting, and maybe it's a little pompous for me, doing a little name throwing or whatever. But first year I go to Xgames, my youngest son Alex was able to come with a friend and his dad to Xgames, and we were out working one night, and events were getting ready to start, and get a call from the boss saying we're gonna go into town and have dinner. And we end up going to the house that Sean White was staying at, which Sean, Gunny, and Bennell have known him since he was a little kid and everything. And so I got to take my youngest son, and we had dinner with Sean and his parents and a few other pretty well-known athletes and everything. And the proudest moment came when me and Bennell were upstairs drinking beer with Sean's dad, and kind of lost track of my boy Alex and went downstairs, and he's sitting there playing video games, and Sean's behind him practicing on his guitar, and they were just hanging out. And I was a pretty cool dad that day. And yeah, I know it's not directly related to snowcatting, but that's one of my my proudest moments and one of my happiest moments. And of course, it all stemmed from me running Snowcat, but I've had many, but that is definitely one of the tops right there.
Thanks for being a part of the Push Road questions of the day.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for the questions, y'all.
The Push Row question of the day.
So we haven't even gotten to what I would say was a really cool highlight in your career, if you were going to term it a highlight. But I know that I had thought it was Park City or a venue there, but you, I was grateful for your correction and being a part of the crew at Snow Basin. But
Yes.
the 2002 Olympics and being a part of that, you were there. And a couple things I would want to know would be what it was like to receive an opportunity or get an opportunity like that, and your role. What were you up to there?
I ran Winchcat. We had, gosh, I might be wrong, but I want to say there was like 22 Snowcats, 22 Winchcats,
Wow.
and then probably another 10 free cats. I mean, it was the most awesome display of machinery I had ever seen. Yeah, it was, thanks to Joe Clark, an icon in the industry. He was with LMC Bombardier and just retired from Prinoth. I got the opportunity to go to the Olympics, the big show. Real quick backstory, when they first announced that the Olympics were going to be in Salt Lake City, of course, like I'm sure a lot of ski areas did, we had a pretty big celebration. And I remember the general manager at the time, I told him, I said, man, I want to go run Snowcat for the Olympics. And he said, man, you're dreaming. He said, you're from a little ski area in New Mexico. You'll never make it there. And ended up getting the opportunity again, with many thanks to Joe Clark from Grand Junction. He helped facilitate that. And it was the big show for sure. Quite an experience.
I mean, to get obviously there's a celebration that highlighted your career, maybe not the climax, but there's obviously course preparation that's involved. You're probably working long nights, so I mean you're used to, I would say at that point, or maybe not actually, because that would have been prior to your SPT days. So what was it like? I guess maybe a precursor would be, what was it like kind of transitioning into something like that for an opportunity coming from resort work and having that consistency of, hey, maybe I'm having to wear another hat one day or I'm having to work a little bit longer of a shift. But what was it like transitioning into an event build like that for either course maintenance, course preparation? Probably wearing multiple hats at one point in time, more so than you would at a normal resort job.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was big culture shock for me. Obviously there was an abundance of snow up there that I wasn't accustomed to, and at one point the area I was working, I had to remove snow off of the course, literally just doze it off into a canyon. I mean, something I had never experienced at Angel Fire. But the biggest thing for me, we had just got our first winch cat in Angel Fire like 2 years before. It was an old 260 PB winch. And when I showed up, everything's Bombardier. And I had been in a BR 2000 winch for like 30 minutes at Bear Mountain in California. So I basically get there, didn't even know how to run the cat, and I'm a little nervous, and we're doing orientation, and I go up to Joe Clark from Bombardier, and I told him, I said, Joe, I only got like 30 minutes in one of you guys' cats, and he told me, he said, "God damn it, Kurt, it's just another fucking machine. Just get in it, run the goddamn thing." And that's what I did. And worked on at the time, to me, it was a pretty steep grade, the men's start pitch, and worked a section, and it was very, very intense time right after 9/11. So the military presence was everywhere on the mountain. Daily routine of helping do shift change of snipers posted out on the mountain, and helicopters flying around, secured area. It was a very strange, tense time, but a very wonderful experience. It was the first time I had met Jeff Flood up at Mount Hood a couple of years prior. Went up there on a summer visit to learn how to cut half pipe, and met him up there, and he worked there at the Olympics when I was there at Snow Basin also, and that was cool. But I don't know, the biggest takeaway from me is that was the first time that anybody convinced me that truly that I was a professional. There was kind of a group of guys there that had done the World Cup the year before, and they were from Vail and Beaver Creek, Chuck, Jason, Rudy, and a guy we called Muddy. They were really, really good winch operators. They kind of took me under their wing when I was there, and as I mentioned before about one of the great things that Frank did with young operators is those guys convinced me I was a professional and that I deserved to be there, and that's kind of gave me the confidence moving forward to do a lot of the things I did up till now, and eternally grateful to those guys that gave me that same respect that I saw Frank give to so many operators over the years.
Just the little subtle things, because it's not like you get to keep a jersey for competing or for winching the race run of the Olympics, but you do have the memories that you can keep somehow, however you piece them together.
Yeah, I've got, great memories. And of course I didn't have a cell phone that takes good pictures at the time. So one of the biggest regrets is that I didn't have more pictures. I do have some old video and stuff that I hold very sacred. A few mementos. It was a great experience and really something I'm very proud to be part of. It was very intense. There's no bullshit. Literally, stop the cat to get out and take a leak, and somebody's calling on the radio saying, "Why is that cat stopped?" Of course, I later found out the race director was just kind of fucking with me by giving me shit like that. But guy named Swampy that works at Snow Basin now, his retirement job is running Snowcat at Snow Basin. But no, it's the big show. There was a lot of tension, not just from the work, but like I said, right after 9/11, the whole environment was an environment of paranoia, really intense. But it may seem odd to people, but I've made the statement many times before. If I was given the choice to work X Games or work the Olympics, I'd probably pick X Games, and that was back when I was doing X Games. I don't know how I would answer that question right now. If I could go do Olympics again and have Andreas Silbernagel on one side and Mike Bennell on the other side, fuck yeah, I'd go do the Olympics.
Yeah.
They'd be picking up all my slack. So,
I was just gonna say, you've got people on either side picking up your berm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, man. Well, I will say it probably was an amazing experience, but one thing I do want to touch on, you mentioned Andreas again and the silver nail. The demo operator experience, we've kind of touched on it a little bit, but your journey there, and I kind of goes back to that adjustment question I had earlier about being in the trenches at the resort level, as well as the consultant level, and being able to come in and build venues like the Olympics or X Games, and having some wonderful people on your team. But what was the transition like into becoming someone that worked for the manufacturer? What was that like?
It was this is very easy for me to answer. It was very enlightening. Um, you know, because you need to understand that beyond demos, we were also involved in research and development. Okay, this is, the changes that are going on with the cats, the new improvements, the new features, so forth and so on, which are driven by what is requested by the customer, and seeing that what it takes to make those changes, and the brilliant people that are involved in making that stuff happen. Most people have not even the slightest clue of what goes into making changes in a snowcat, because there is, I've worked in the dirt industry and everything, and there is, to my knowledge, there is not a machine out there that has progressed so much in such a short amount of time in regards to technology, capabilities, power, everything else as a snowcat. And it was very, again, I say, enlightening to learn about the process, and working with guys like Andreas and Ben Finn and Jason Rakow, and all these people from my world that are operators, and to be able to get involved in that testing, and to have your input and feedback listened to, but then also being educated on what it takes to make those changes, and meeting these brilliant, wonderful, I fucking can't say enough about these engineers that make all this stuff happen. You know, it was really, really amazing to see that side of the industry. I mean, the demoing was great, and that's where we'd get the feedback from the customers. Some of it was good and useful. Some of it was absolutely fucking ridiculous. There were times where I'm sitting there and I'm like, really, you're bitching about that? You're in this magnificent machine and you're bitching about that? It just but seeing the brilliant minds at work, to make this stuff come together, and what is entailed in the most slight change in a machine, was really eye opening, and gave me a whole different appreciation, not just for the machines, but the industry itself. And it's not all good. I'm going to say some of the direction we're going with the machines, I'm not 100% with, but it's driven by what the customers are asked for. And I think all the cat manufacturers are trying to give the customers what they want. But I think there's an element of people sitting back saying, God damn, is this really what you want? Is this really where you want to go?
Mm-hmm.
And I really enjoyed the time working with Prinoth. That was just unbelievable. Yeah.
Well, speaking of Prinoth and people you've worked with, we've already had one question from one individual, Andreas, but I've got another one for you. He's got two questions for you. We'll go lighthearted question first. It's from Ben Finn. I'm excited that he's contributed. I've been harassing him. I'll use that word. I've been harassing him since day one to contribute to the podcast, and I'm excited that he has done it with your episode. So I will go ahead and play it for you now. Here we go. Lighthearted question from Mr. Ben Finn.
Hey, Kurt. It's wicked awesome to hear you on the Blade Dive today with Parker. I just wanted to say that Rhode Island is neither a road nor an island. Your thoughts?
Really, Ben? Jesus. You're a fucking genius, and that's the best you could come up with? Oh, my God. Now, Ben, appreciate any question from you. I have most respect for you. Loved working with you. You know, I mean, you're in Utah now. You've been in California. You've been down to Perisher, but you're still just an East Coast dude, man. And still say everything is wicked good. I have no fucking idea how to answer that question, Ben. Surely you've got another question beyond that.
Oh, man. Well, the reason why I thought it was amazing is because Ben does the same thing to me. He will send things my way that totally and utterly blow my mind because I don't even know what to say to it, and it's a 100% distraction from what I'm trying to attempt to do during the day. But I love him for it. It's amazing. I've greatly appreciated getting to know Ben and how passionate he is, but how much of a sense of humor he has.
Oh, man.
But I agree with him. I do think that Rhode Island is neither a road or an island. So I don't know. That would be my thought. I do have another question from Ben on a very amazing, intelligent note, as you put it. I'll go ahead and play it for you now. Here we go.
Hey, Kurt. It's really awesome to hear you on the Blade Dive today, and I'm honored that I could be a special guest. You know, over the years that we worked together, you and I had a lot of conversations about operator turnover, wages, and retention. I think we've seen it quite a bit. And it's still perplexing to me that you can put somebody in a snowcat, send them out on the side of the mountain in the middle of the night in a snowstorm, and expect them to put out a quality product, take care of the machine, and pay them $12 an hour. My question to you is, now that you're in a management role back on the ski resort side of things, I know that you're facing the same kind of staffing challenges that a lot of people are facing right now, and looking for operators. What are some of the things that you're doing or thinking about in trying to attract operators and retain them?
Ben, that's a very, very good question, very important, and should be a point of discussion in many places. What I'm doing on my end is I'm trying to, and have been successful, I think, in conveying the message of the importance of the operator and what they bring to a ski area. And I will say that I am in a situation now where the people that I work with and for understand and appreciate the importance of a good, talented snowcat operator that's going to provide the product that we sell. And that's a good skiing surface or riding surface. We have been blessed to have some good operators, and we have also done well in, I think, creating a pay scale that is not as insulting, and I will use the word insulting, is what we know exists in many areas in the industry. One of the biggest factors that needs to come into play is we need to start paying people based on their talent, not on their tenure or their time that they have been around. Okay. We need to give the opportunity for the young operators to be rewarded for their desire to do good work and to progress and to contribute and have a lot of pride in their work. And I feel that we are doing that right now. Our pay scale is better than most places. But with that comes a higher level of accountability. That if we're going to improve the pay, we need to change the culture of the work environment away from doing just what it takes to get by to actually striving to be the best that there is. And, people need to understand that we're not going to solve the problem just by improving the pay, that we need to improve the level of satisfaction that employees get from their jobs, to make them know that they are valued and that they have a strong sense of accomplishment. Because you can bump snowcat operators pay up to 35 bucks an hour, but if those people don't get a strong sense of accomplishment from their work, they're not getting the pay that is going to make them better. You have to develop the achieving worker, the person that isn't getting their only reward just from their paycheck, because the paycheck could never be enough if that's all that they are working for. They have to have a sense of pride. They have to have a sense of worth. And when you're able to achieve that, and the combination of the both, of both things, the good living wage and a good sense of accomplishment, and treat people good, that's what is going to help make this type of work successful, because it has been stagnant, and I feel that it's getting close to a breaking point where people are going to be so depleted with operators that it's going to start negatively affecting the industry. I've heard the question asked many times: how is it that somebody can go run an excavator and get paid 35 bucks an hour and then be asked to put in a snowcat for 15? And it's a true legitimate question. Mind you, that I will not deny there are people running snowcats for 15 bucks an hour that should be getting 35. Okay. They are worthy of it. The tough thing is that when you're running an excavator and you're digging ditch and you are producing a billable amount of work. Okay. If it's X number of dollars per foot that your boss is making when you dig, and you're digging 1,200 feet a day, he can easily calculate what your worth is in that machine. If you're on a dozer and you're moving cubic yards of material and that your boss is billing by cubic yards moved, that's an easy billable result. In snowcats, the biggest challenge is, how do you place value on that work? Okay. And the thing is, the responsibility is up to the operator and his supervisor and that supervisor's manager to convey the message to upper management what the value of their work is, what it is producing. And the challenge, the tough thing is coming up with a true tangible number. Okay. And the thing is, I'll go back to what I said before. The people that are ruining this whole scenario are the people that are going in, doing the bare minimum, conveying the message that running a snowcat is about going up, finding a place to sleep, and doing the bare minimum, doing it the way they've been doing it since back when they ran a fucking Tucker. They are the ones that are ruining the whole concept of what does a snowcat produce in value to a into a ski area? And that is it. It all boils down to, how do you sell yourself? How do you sell your craft? How do you convey how important it is to the overall success of your ski area? If you're conveying your work as similar to going out and mowing the lawn and leaving straight lines and doing your tie-ins and stuff like that, the job is going to be viewed as you operating a lawnmower. But if you convey the message that you're managing snow, that you're reducing cost of snowmaking because of your blade management or blade skills and your snow management skills, so forth and so on, then you can start to get as abstract as it might be, a number that puts some value onto the work that you do. It's not just how pretty your product is. You have to have every aspect of the job clearly conveyed and understood to the people in upper management, so they can see, yeah, this is really important. Okay. That this person is helping to preserve snow. And this is something that we who are in areas of low snow and limited snowmaking capabilities have been successful at in getting operators good pay, is that it is well understood that good snow management skills and the ability to open more runs with less snow and make those snowmaking dollars go further has a value to it. If you're not selling yourself as more than a goddamn lawnmower operator, you're not going to get better pay. And I know that's kind of harsh, but I'll say that again, when you get into that realm of increasing pay and really getting cat operators what they should be making, you need to make sure that they continue to earn those dollars.
Yeah, well, you mentioned something too with respect to just the excavation or running any kind of dozer or yellow iron. I was going to bring up too, like the cost of what it is to pluck a like an Ethernet cable or like an internet cable out of the ground. If you rip that out, how much does that cost to replace? If you're in a neighborhood or in an industrial area, or what if you hit a gas line, or what if you hit a water line, or anything like that? There's somebody inevitably that's responsible for the cost of replacing or repairing the damage to whatever was damaged. So gas line, water line, internet cable. Maybe the foundation wasn't, or the dirt work wasn't laid out right, the grade wasn't correct, etc. You underestimated your cost of material, whatever it is. There, like you said, there's a billable service that's there. There are consequences for the mistakes, and that also is a price. And so if somebody can be efficient with said job and run a heavy piece of equipment doing that in a confined space with all those financial issues that can pop up, and do it without a fail, then yeah, they're definitely justifying why they should be paid X amount of dollars. But if you're literally going up there every night and putting 5 passes down a run and your blade's in the air, or you're happy facing the whole time, then yeah, it's gonna be really hard for you to advocate for an increased wage.
And that's a very good analogy, because like if I hired an operator to dig trench for me, and I knew that he was a person that could dig next to a mainline fiber and not break it, obviously that person is going to get good pay, because breaking a mainline fiber is what in the excavation business you refer to as a bankrupter. Okay, it can cost you many dollars. So when you recognize the skill that somebody has to not break that fiber, you're going to get them paid more. So there again, when in relation to snowcat operators, when you have a snowcat crew that's up and they're backing over snowmaking hydrants or hitting guns or hitting fucking lift towers or wadding up pop fence in their tillers, this, that, and the other, they are the ones that will affect the ability for other operators to get better pay. And it's serious business, and people have to have the focus on, if you want the pay to improve, that you need to make sure that such incidents don't happen. Now, but the thing is, there's also, when on the ski area side, when they make the decision that snowcat operators should be paid at such a low level because they don't view them as being as skilled as other areas within the ski area, or they are not direct revenue generating departments, so forth and so on, then the ski area managers need to be prepared to contend with the damage, whether it be to property, to the fencing, to the lift towers, to the snowmaking facilities, and to the snowcats themselves. And very few places really track what damages they incur to facilities or snowcats with inexperienced operators, inexperienced, untrained operators, as compared to seasoned, focused, high-skilled veterans. And I'm a director of mountain operations, but I'm not going to defend my counterparts and say that you're going to get good results by paying people $12 an hour to take these big, massive, powerful machines that are capable of massive destruction and expect it to come out better than if you were paying good, skilled operators a good living wage. Seen it time and time again, and I don't care what repercussions I get from this. People need to wake up, because it's going to come to a head. And when you've got these big ski areas that are experiencing more than 50% turnover in their operators, they should be very concerned and very focused on what their repair costs are for snowcats and what their damage costs are on their facilities, because it's time. And right now it is an employee's market. There are wages going up across the board in all different industries, and we need to make sure that when we get talented people that are conscientious of their machines, the facilities around them, that we provide them with a good enough living wage that we can retain those people and keep our damage costs down.
One of the solid points I was just going to mention too, a lot of times when I'm asked, would I rather have somebody that's moldable, or would I rather have somebody that's got a little bit of an ego and has been set in their ways? I'd rather have somebody that's moldable every time. For somebody to be able to follow directions, take responsibility for the well-being of not only themselves and their safety, but the machine, compared to somebody that's been in the industry, as you mentioned before, for a lengthy period of time and doesn't want to admit the fact that they've only really advanced their career by 20 years by doing the same thing over and over again every night and claiming that it's reinventing the wheel. I would pick the person that's moldable every single time and placing them with somebody that's got the experience the correct way and the correct mentality to be able to invest in somebody, kind of like I mentioned earlier, the 3 T's, the trust, the training, and the trajectory. I'd much rather do that. If somebody's motivated and they want to be in the position and they're interested in progressing their career, then I would much rather invest in that than I would somebody who's stuck in their ways.
Ab- Absolutely. But
Yeah.
the thing is, the ski industry, again, needs to be willing to invest in talent over tenure.
Yes.
Okay. And you
Absolutely.
need to reward those people. And I don't care if anybody thinks this is bragging, but 31 years in snowcats, I have never broken a windshield and I have never backed over a snowmaking hydrant.
That's pretty good. That's a pretty good stat sheet. Have you ever
Yeah.
never backed over a stinger, never backed over a tiller?
Nope.
That's a pretty good stat sheet. You know, as you mentioned, as a director of mountain operations at Angel Fire, I would I would really be interested to know just, and we've kind of talked about it a little bit just with where you've been and the folks that you are talking to within the industry, but how do you think that you're using your voice beyond, talking to me on the Blade Dive to discuss the impact or the future of the snow industry?
Well, with COVID, haven't had many opportunities to speak with very many people. Haven't been able to do NSAA, Colorado Ski Country, none of that. Um, I All I can say is that what I will commit to is making sure that the younger generations that are truly passionate about this craft and this business, I want to make sure that they have a voice that will be heard and that people listen to them. Um, I got to go to Cutter's Camp a couple of years ago, and it was just it was like a drug. It was just inspiring to be around all those young operators, inspired, and there's a new renaissance. Reminded me a lot of what we were going through in the early 90s trying to get terrain parks started. They're doing a lot of really cool stuff with transition parks, fun parks, whatever you want to call them. There's this whole new level of creativity, and I want to make sure that they have a voice. And any opportunity that I get to help them get their voice heard, I'm going to take. Because I think we're on the verge of something great here. For all the bad things said about the new generation, I think there's a lot of truly passionate kids out there that need to be heard. They can take things in a new direction. For years we've been trying to do things and progress and think outside of the box, and this new generation has the opportunity to build a new box, start over, change the face of things, and it's happening. And that's what I hope I could accomplish in this role. That would be a great achievement, to be able to back these kids the way we were backed in the 90s by guys like John Rice, John Mahana, Dick Kuhn, people that had faith in moving things forward. And I think there's a lot of good things ahead if we can just support these kids that are truly passionate about the craft.
That's well said. Where do you think the future of the snow industry is headed? If you wanted to put it into maybe a 20-year down the line perspective, or you can take it anywhere. Machines, I know you've already mentioned giving the youth the voice, but where do you think the industry maybe as a whole is headed in the next couple of years?
In the next couple of years, I think one of the biggest challenges is going to be with dealing with the insurgence of people getting how should I say this, getting involved in snow sports. I think there's going to be a tremendous buildup of people wanting to. There's going to be a lot of new skiers, a lot of new snowboarders. This the pandemic kind of is a real tough thing. People want to get outdoors. They want to feel free. We see it. Gosh, it's people want to just get outside, feel nature, not be locked up. And I think over the next couple of years, there's a great opportunity to really build off of that. But we need to do it right. We need to make sure that when people get introduced to skiing and snowboarding, that they stay interested in it, that they develop the love for it, because everybody wants to get out and try it. And whether it's skiing, snowboarding, mountain biking, anything getting outdoors, people want to try it. And we have a big responsibility to make sure that their first experience is wonderful, their second experience is wonderful, and that we hook them in for life. Because it is a beautiful life. All those of us that experience it know that everybody should experience it. And we just need to do it right. And as far as where it's going to go in the next couple of years, it's all going to be determined by how right we do it.
Okay, Kurt. So we've talked about a lot, and as I mentioned too, I never know what I'm going to get into every time I jump on the podcast to speak with somebody, and we have truly talked about a lot. I have been enlightened. I've learned a lot. I feel like I'm invigorated and motivated. I feel like I know more than I did yesterday, for sure. And I think I can take a lot of what we've discussed and apply it. There's some great stories, and I beyond that, there's some really good intel to what it is to be around somebody who's got a job title like you do of director of mountain operations. I know there are more directors of operations out there like yourself, but it was awesome to have you on the show. One question that we always ask everybody is, what defines you outside of the snow industry, beyond the job, beyond snowcat operating? And then kind of a question that we've rolled into that with just obviously the recommendation of our listeners. They want to know, what would your dream job be?
The thing is, what I am outside of the snow industry is what truly does define me. I don't let I don't let myself be defined by what I've done, what I've accomplished, what the snow industry has done for me. I want to think that I am defined by as being, or my family is the center of my world. That's all I want to be defined for. And I'll do everything I can to help them, provide for them, grow with them. That's what I want to be defined as. Not too long ago, somebody that I work with up here told me that they really respected me so much because of what I had accomplished, what I had done, where I have been, the places I have been. And I told them, that's a line I got from an uncle of mine, that all of the things that I have done, all the places that I have been, and $5 will buy me a cup of coffee at Starbucks. It's what I do from here on out that truly defines me, not what I've done in the past. And it's something that I learned from a comment that I heard from, of all people, Andrew Erath, not long after I met him. I heard him say he would never allow himself to be defined by him being with SPT or him being at Mammoth or whatever. Really kind of took that statement to heart. It's not. I'm not defined by what I've done in the past. It's what I'm going to be defined by what I do in the future.
positioning yourself on a pedestal because of what you have for a job or what you've done in your career it's one way to be, but realizing that take all that away and it's really not worth that much. It's worth more to be valued, it's worth more for you to value yourself as you than it is for I was listening to there's so much good music I've been listening to lately. I can't think of the name of the verse. Maybe I'll think of it and I'll put it into the post, but it had a lot to do with just very much in line with what you just said. All those things combined, it doesn't really wash up to much. But outside of all that, if you're a good human being and you're good to who you are and you're good to your family, then that's the richest you could ever be. I don't know if you had a dream job. What do you think there, if anything?
Well, I mean, I have no regrets. I'm beyond. I feel beyond blessed of the things that I've been able to do. But when I was younger and in a position where I couldn't work, was going to college and had the opportunity to be a coach high school football. And my old football coach, I was down and out and wanted to help me out, give me something to do, and give me a purpose. And I helped coach high school football, and that was one of the most satisfying things I've ever done in my life. And if there was another dream job, I would say I'd be coaching kids in sports.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. Coaching's a hard thing to do. Kind of relating it to the training piece of equipment, it takes a certain mindset to be able to be a trainer, and it takes a certain mindset to be a coach.
But the reward you can feel with your successes is unbelievable.
Yeah, absolutely.
Any impact you can have on a young person, whether it's coaching them in football or teaching them how to run a fucking snowcat, man, that's one of the greatest rewards anybody could experience.
Yeah, I agree. Well, along the lines of rewards, what's maybe something that you've sacrificed, and you can say time if you want to, in order to maybe succeed, if we're going to term your version of success as to where you have landed within your career, although success is defined differently by each and every individual in the world. But I kind of wanted to go there with you. What is maybe something that you kind of sacrificed or gave up in order to get to where you are that maybe you could have back?
Oh man, that's easiest answer to any question you've asked. Time with my family. Man, it just a lot of lost time. Miss my children when they were young. Wish I could get more time with them when they were young. It's gone forever. Couple of years on the road doing demos. I missed every single birthday of every single member of my family, wife, kids, grandkids, everything. Wish I could have all that back. But not any regrets. Just the way it is. But that's the biggest thing with time with family. No, I can never get it back. But moving forward, just got to make the most out of the time I do get.
Well, Kurt, I definitely want to say thank you really quick before we jump off of here. Again, this has been amazing. And as you have just now experienced, it's definitely a time suck. It's a big commitment, and I'm grateful for, you staying up with me to chop it up and talk about all things you, your career, your family, and I'm truly humbled. Thank you so much for your time.
Oh, Parker, I'm humbled. This is so important to me because it's a podcast for our peers. This is for snowcat operators. I am so grateful that you're doing this, and I'm humbled by it, and there's a lot of great people out there that love this craft, and And I think your podcast is just a wonderful forum for everybody. And I love this this work, this craft, and I think this is one of the best things that's happened to it in a long time.
Huge thank you to Kurt Eppler for being this week's Blade Dive podcast episode. I was so grateful that he made time out of his busy schedule to sit down with me and just talk about some really heavy stuff. So grateful for Kurt's time. Don't forget, if you are stoked on sharing some pro tips, do that. Share the video to your story, tag us in it, and we will add it to our highlight on our feed. It's a really great way to share intel, and I've had a lot of messages come in that have said, holy cow, never thought about doing it that way. This is amazing. All right, you know the deal. Don't be a dick. Please fill your machine up with diesel at the end of your shift.